All right, Chains again.
Want to say hi?
All right, chapter 29. Yep. Oh, and I'm gonna move the table closer. All right. Chapter 29, Sunday, September 15th, 1776. The demons of fear and disorder seemed to take full possession of all and everything upon that day. Journal of Private Joseph Plum Martin, 15-year-old patriot soldier. Don't join that. I was the only person on the street. The army was gone and the city abandoned. I shivered at the thought that the day was still warm. Had I made a mistake? Should I run after the rebels and join them? Should I go back to the Locktons? The cannon... That's the book. A cannon boomed to the north. No, I chose the right course at least. I hope I had. I headed for the waterfront. Several of the grand mansions of Lower Broadway stood with their doors ajar. A fire burnt at the edge of the street, heaped with books and scads of papers. The smoke rose up into the air, drifting toward the masts of a few ships at anchor. Cannons boomed again. What if they didn't arrive right away? How long did I have before Madame grew suspicious? A gust of wind blew and carried it with all the first hint of fall. A canoe-shaped chestnut leaves turned yellow around the edge. Don't join that. No. Can you come here? Want to get on my head? Good girl. The leaves caught and piled up against the soldiers' tents behind the battery campground. I walked over and pulled back the flap of the tent. Inside lay 2 bedrolls, a pipe, and a tobacco pouch, and a shirt dropped in the middle of mending. The needle still threaded and stuck in the fabric. I closed the flap. They left near everything: tents, blankets, extra clothing, cook pots, and food. It will be a cold night for Curzon and its companions. The voices came from waterfront, military voices shouting orders. I hurried away from the barracks, dashed down Water Street, and hid behind a rain barrel at the corner of the joiner's workshop. Half-dozen flat-bottom boats were being rowed to the docks. 2 were ready tied up, and tall soldiers wearing the red uniform of King George were striding down the street. Lobsterbacks, folks call them. They fanned out across the waterfront, their muskets primed and held out in the ready position. As I watched, the 3rd boat floated to the wharf. Whatever that. Ticket? Hold on 1 second. Can you get down? I don't want your butt in my face. Okay? Okay. Voices came. A half-dozen flat-bottom ships were being rowed to the docks. 2 already tied up, and tall soldiers wearing the red uniform of King George. They were striding down the streets. Lobsterbacks, folks call them. They fanned out across the waterfront, their muskets primed and held at the ready position. As I watched, a 3rd boat floated to the wharf. The soldier on it jumped out and marched in formation to the battery in search of rebel soldiers. A woman carrying a baby fled, screaming loudly. A few of the redcoats chuckled and stabbed at the air with their bayonets. My throat went dry. As the 4th boat landed, an officer stepped off and barked a command at the laughing men. They lined up, stood at attention. The officer gave another command. The men marched off, splitting into 3 groups to investigate the battery. the waterfront buildings. The officer stood alone at the foot of the dock, surveying the deserted town as more boats splashed towards the landing spot. This was my chance. I forced myself out of a hiding place and walked toward him, my back ramrod straight. "Begging your pardon, sir," I said boldly. "What is it, girl?" he asked. I'm gonna sneeze. Before I could answer, a soldier dashed up to him. "Captain Campbell, sir. The campground appears to be deserted. The rebels left their tents behind and bedrolls. Secure the tent flaps open and check everyone," the captain said. "It could be a trap." "Yes, no." "Yes, sir," came the crisp reply before the men ran off. I prayed I would not faint from fear and tried again for the captain's attention. "I can cook, sir. I can wash. I can even doctor the sick." "Don't bother me, child." I trailed after him as he walked towards the campground. "Please, sir," I insisted. "I'm all kinds of useful. I can chop wood or carry water or messages." I was interrupted by another soldier who approached us and saluted. "Report," Captain Campbell said. "The spies were correct, sir. The rebels have retreated. The battery is empty of men but filled with provisions. The weapons they left behind, including several cannons, and they even left a tea kettle bubbling over the fire. Civilians in the first 3 streets of north here all assist to their haste. Putin's unit was the last one out. They're on their way up to the island by the way of Greenwich Road. Do we want to pursue, sir?" The captain fought the smile that played at the corner of his lips. "Our task is to occupy the city. Let the Highlanders hunt them down. Tell the men to take over the barracks and prepare Washington's headquarters for Major General Washington." "Wait a minute. Major General Robertson." "Yes, sir," the soldier saluted again, but did not move. "What is it now?" Jennings asked the captain. "Begging pardon, sir, but I've not been informed as to the whereabouts of Washington's headquarters. If I was to be given that information, I could pursue my obligations with greater speed." "I don't know where it is," Captain Campbell said with irritation. "Use your noggin, man. Ask the tavern keeper." You want the Kennedy Mansion, sir," I said. "Just beyond the end of the battery facing Bowling Green." "What did you say?" The captain fired at me. My knees were shaking under my skirt. "The Kennedy Mansion, sir, was General Washington's main headquarters, number 1, Broadway. His wife stayed up at the, I don't know what that word is, house. But he kept headquarters straight that way. Alright. I kept headquarters straight at that way. I pointed west, and more army officers were in City Hall. I pointed north up Broad Street. "Very good," he said. "There you have it, Sergeant. Proceed." The sergeant yelled to his unit as he walked away from us. The waterfront was awash, and in red now as boatloads of soldiers disembarked. His shouted orders filled the air, along with nervous laughter of the British boots on the cobblestones. A few more boats were on their way, with the first boats headed back for more. The occupation was well and truly begun. I read that. No, I didn't. You were, yes? Okay. The occupation, you were correct, young miss, Captain Campbell said to me. "You are useful, but we do not want troublemakers in the camp. What is the meaning of the mark on your face?" I touched the scar and decided that honesty was my only course. It stands for insolence, sir. When my mistress sold my little sister, I tried to run away. She was 5 years old, sir. My sister is not my no, my sister, not my mistress. He blinked and cleared his throat. Regrettable and understandable. I have a younger sister myself. Your mistress, am I to assume she supports the rebel cause? No, sir, I answered. My house is Tory. Yes? Alright. My master was driven out of town by the Patriot leaders. My mistress is much cheered by your arrival. She wants to hire a proper staff so she can entertain again. She will not miss my services one bit. The words tumbled out before I measured them. The captain's mouth hardened. I knew I had stepped wrong. He tugged on his sash. I cannot accept your services, child. We only employ slaves run away from rebel owners. I did not hear him right. Pardon me? Gentleman docking, sir, cried a soldier on the wharf. Captain Campbell turned as the men tossed thick ropes from one dock to the occupants of another boat. The next boat. It contained only 4 soldiers, each manning an oar. The rest of the passengers were men dressed in expensive civilian clothes. When they're ashore, escort them to the tavern for celebration, the captain said loudly. Issue the tavern keeper an office of forged certificate. Lord him, Sergeant. Sergeant, he is not to ask gentlemen for payment unless he wants to spend the night in the irons. They are our guests. Yes, sir, came the enthusiastic response. As we had been talking, ordinary city folk had begun to creep out of their houses, and now a full crowd gathered. The Tories of New York had been awaiting this day for months, years. Cheers were heard in the, what is it? Let's find out. In the distance, the arriving soldiers were greeted by townsmen who shook their heads and patted them heartily on their back. Hold on, is my phone almost dead? Because that could be an issue. I don't think it is. It probably is. It's probably about to die, and I'm going to lose all of this. Alright. Distance. The arriving soldiers were greeted by townsmen who shook their heads and patted them heartily on the backs. Yeah. She's scratching the book. No, don't chew on the book. Alright. Their hands and patted them heartily on the back. I recognized a few faces. The Reverend and his wife, and a few people who called at the Walkden's home. Captain Campbell bent toward me. He spoke quickly and quietly. Do you want to stand on the book? No. I don't want to. Chicken? Chicken. Good girl. Right. Captain Campbell bent toward me. He spoke quickly and quietly. I do not hold with slavery, but I cannot help you. We do not interfere with royalist property. Return to your mistress. A loud huzzah from hundreds of throats came from the battery as the American flag was pulled down. A drummer started beating time, and the Union Jack rose to the top of the flagpole, accompanied by whistles and shouts from the lobsterbacks and royalist New Yorkers, who took off their hats in respect. A woman in the crowd snatched the American flag out of the hands of the British soldiers and stomped it under her boots. The men laughed. The of the drumsticks rattled through me, setting my teeth shaking and waking. The bees that had lately gone to sleep in my brain pan. You want to date me? He wouldn't. I was chained between 2 nations. The bees swarmed against my eyes, making the scene grow dim and distant. The sun was nearing, casting long shadows across the wharf. I was a ghost tied to the ground, not a living soul. All ashore, sir, called the soldier trying up the last boat. I want paroles assembled immediately to watch in the streets and sentry fire built on every corner. Yes, sir, the gentleman who had arrived on the boat walked toward us with great excitement. One of them was painfully familiar. He had called to me before I could flee. Sal, called Master Elihu. Thinner from his eyes, exhale bloodshot, weary. Is that you? I dropped into curtsy and dared not say a word. He studied me, on me with suspicion. What are you doing here? Sergeant Jennings approached. The tavern is open if the gentleman would care to drink to victory. Lockton waved to his companions. I shall join you shortly. As the gentleman hurried into the tavern, his eyes traveled from my head down to my shoes and back. What news, Sal? He asked. How come you to be here? I pulled Madame's list from my pocket and prayed he would not look inside my basket. Come to market, sir, I whispered. Ah, what is this? He took my chin in his fingers, turning it so the last rays of sunset fell on my scar. This. What was that? I think my cat just died. All right. Hold on, where were we? Oh, fell on my scar. Is the eye for illustrious or perhaps imperfect? My face burned both in the scar and where his lavender-smelling fingers pinched my skin. The bees flew through me, told me to grab Campbell's sword and run it through Lockton's belly. And then what? And then what? I suspect it stands for insolence, Captain Campbell said, calmly. 'Tis the common brand among the people of Boston. Lockton land. Got the small joke and released me. Now we'll call her insolent, Sal, a very saucy gal. The captain smiled and put his hand on the hilt of his sword. I should have known. She was attached to your household, sir. She greeted me in the names of the king, thanked me for rescuing the city from the rebels. They both looked at me. All right, last page. We prayed for our liberation, I said. Even our slaves have become political, Lockton said. How quaint. Do you wish to accompany your servant home to greet your mistress, the captain said. Lockton shook his head, not at the moment. Go on home, Sal. Tell Anne. I shall be along after. I lifted a few glasses in celebration. The two men headed for the tavern as the sun finally dropped out of sight. I must have gone to the Masons and bought the items on the Madame's list, though I remember it not. My body moved through the streets, past sentry fire and redcoats carrying torches down suspicious alleyways and into abandoned houses. Around me was the sound of victors celebrating and the smell of meat roasted for their supper. Around me, all was darkness. All right. Go get him. Okay. Alright, that was James. It was fun. Say bye to Bella Bella. Can you say something? I don't think she's gonna say anything. Goodbye.